Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Andrew Swiler. Andrew is an entrepreneur acquiring HR SaaS companies. He's a CEO of Lanteria HR. So we're going to talk about HR and his acquisition strategy today. He's in Barcelona and has been to Oaxaca, Mexico. It's probably 1 in 50 people I talk to have been to Oaxaca. So glad to know. And I did enjoy my time in Barcelona. It's an amazing city, huge city. And there's an Ironman there, so I might do it soon. This pod is presented by podpire.com if you want to start or scale, monetize your podcast the unconventional way. Andrew, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about Lanteria.
Thanks, Charles. Good to be here. I wish I was with you in person in Oaxaca. It's actually one of my favorite places I've ever been to. So I'm hoping. I was actually about a month ago. I was looking at places to rent in Oaxaca. If I can convince my wife to go back.
Let me know when you're back. I'll
I
house
will.
you.
I will. I'll let you know when we come there because it's high on my priority to get back there soon. We have 2 little kids, so it's not as easy as it was the last time we were there to move around. But so I started my career in private equity and then got burned out, left that after about 5 years, moved to San Francisco, worked as sort of like a CFO for a few SaaS companies. My wife, who's from Barcelona, came to me one day and said, I want to move back to Barcelona. You can stay here or you can come back with me. We got married, moved back to Barcelona a few weeks later, and we actually started an eyewear company together. And we sold that back in 2019. And after that, I didn't really know what I was going to do. Didn't want to go back to private equity. Wasn't going to move back to San Francisco. Didn't want to make glasses anymore. And I did not compete, so I couldn't do that anyways. But decided I was going to get back into software. Wanted to run a remote company. Decided I knew about search funds, so I kind of like did this hybrid search fund kind of thing. Acquired my own company, this company Lanteria, which we sell HR. I mean, we're competitors to like Workday, for example, and we sell HR software to sort of mid-market companies that are Microsoft users.
Microsoft users, interesting. Why Microsoft users?
So that was what the previous owners did. They built the software on top of SharePoint. They focused on Microsoft. And for me, I love the boring aspect of certain business. Like the more boring, the better, because it means not as many people are going to come in there. So when we looked, there really was only like 1 or 2 competitors that were making HR software for Microsoft, like Microsoft Teams, Microsoft SharePoint. And we said, great, perfect. Like we're competing globally with these giant billion-dollar companies, but we have a niche and we have a focus. And for me, that's sort of the key piece of going after, any company that you're going to acquire is make sure that, there's a growing niche, and Microsoft has doubled over the Microsoft user base has doubled over the last 3 years. So, and with Copilot coming up, it's projected to grow even more. So we were super bullish on this, and so far it's been an interesting journey. We have companies that are sort of parallel to us that are in the Microsoft niche that have grown like 500% over the last few years. So we think that there's a big opportunity in front of us.
And why HR businesses? Tell me a bit more about your current portfolio as well.
I mean, we focus our businesses that are clients are pretty boring businesses as well. So we focus on manufacturing company. I mean, we have some big names, like we have Lockheed Martin, we have Sega, we have Warner Brothers. So we do have some like bigger companies, but even like Lockheed Martin, this is just a boring company. I mean, they're, in defense, in manufacturing. So we work with banks, manufacturing companies, plastics, transportation companies, shipping companies. So a lot of these companies that, a lot of companies, they're looking for these tech startups because we're selling, on a per seat basis. So a lot of companies look for these big, like growing startups because maybe they'll get them onto their platform. They have 50 employees and then they're going to go to 5,000 within a few years. But it's a mega competitive space. I mean, you guys do outbound, you understand. If you're doing outbound, a lot of these people, it is swarmed. Like these HR people's inbox is just full of people looking to get in front of them. And at any given time, only 2% of the market is even shopping for a new HR management system. It's a pretty sticky software. Like it's one of those things that once you put it in, you've spent a lot of money to set it up. You're probably not going to move on. I mean, even we have most of our lifetime value for customers goes almost into 7 years. So we have customers that have been with the company for 12 years, almost since the beginning of the company. And it's just one of those industries that people don't want to change. It's costly to change. You're dealing with, it's one of the few pieces of software that everyone in the company uses besides email. So it's not like Salesforce where it's just the sales team, or the accounting software that's just for the accounting team. It's everybody needs to do time and attendance, check their pay stubs, check all their information. So it's a pretty important piece of infrastructure for companies.
Right. So you acquired, I mean, HR companies are so SaaS, right? Um, yes, indeed, a crowded niche, especially if they're in the SaaS world, but I don't see a lot of funds specialized in acquiring HR SaaS business. But all money is green, right? So VCs don't tend to have like an edge nowadays. So what is yours?
Our niche is, I mean, we're focused on just acquiring HR SaaS companies. So companies that are not on the recruitment side. We're looking at like performance management. We're looking at companies that do benefits, payroll, things like that, that are sort of like the infrastructure that goes into it. And then, I mean, our platform is HRMS, which is basically hire to retire software. But we don't look at anything on the recruitment side. It's too cyclical, and it's too hit or miss. And a lot of times it's not even recurring. There's a lot of companies that their recurring is very small, and a lot of what they do is sort of like the plus of, for every employee that gets onboarded or every hire that you do or whatever they can recruit for. So we look for ones that are really recurring and sticky and become pieces of infrastructure for companies.
And what size of check do you cut usually for what amount of the business, or do you straight up acquire the full thing?
We just look for acquisitions. So I mean, we look for companies that are doing about 1 to 2 million in ARR, maybe a little bit more. Um, so we look for deals that we can get good multiples on. So we're looking for companies that are 1 to 3x ARR is typically the type of companies that we're looking to acquire.
Roger that. And how many did you acquire so far?
We only have one right now. We're looking for more. Right now, we're in the process. We're negotiating with two more as we speak. But it's been, I mean, we got into this 18 months ago. Basically, the idea was build up a muscle, build up a team, and then go out and find the next opportunity once we could show that we've grown this. So we grew about 40% last year with like no budget. I mean, we started with $100,000 in cash to start, and we took it from 1.5 million in sales to like 2.4 million in sales over the last year. So we're hoping to sort of take that track record and show our investors like, hey, you should double down on this. This is a good strategy. And we have, like I said, we have 2 or 3 targets right now that we're negotiating with and hoping that we can close more of those deals. We need more capital, frankly. Like we need more people backing us to be able to do it. But that's what I'm working on right now.
And why has acquiring become your priority as the CEO?
Um, I mean, we acquired Lanteria. So, I mean, it was our priority from day one. Like, we acquired this company. We wanted to, I mean, this is what I wanted to get into. We wanted to acquire one and then acquire 3 or 4 other ones to go with it, but really complementary stuff. Like, we didn't want to buy the same thing 3 times. It's like, let's find, like I said, benefits, payroll, things like that.
Who's managing the business?
I manage a business. I mean, I'm the CEO of the company. I run it. But my job is I hire marketing people, hire salespeople, have a CTO. They run most of the day-to-day things, and then I'm mostly focused on finding us money, finding us capital, going out and finding more acquisitions that we can go after. And a lot of the things I work on is just partnerships too, looking for channel partners, things like that we can do for customer acquisition.
How do you find these great people? I've always struggled with finding great performing humans. I just can hire, pay them a shitload of money and let them do their things. That never happens. They always fuck up something.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure what the best way to do it. I'm pretty patient with hiring people. Like if I have a hole and I need to hire for it, I don't think of that position. I just think of the ideal person and I wait for them to come to us. So I'll do LinkedIn posts. I mean, we're remote, like you guys are fully remote too. So I mean, I'll do LinkedIn posts in every country and almost a lot of cities sometimes. And I'll post for 2 days, take all the candidates that are there, find like the top 1 or 2, interview them. If they don't fit, discard it. do the same thing just over and over again. Like the good thing is with LinkedIn, you can have one free post at any given time on LinkedIn. So it doesn't cost you any money. You can get 55 candidates from that one post. And typically there's always one or two. Also Well Found, that used to be AngelList, has some decent people on there. Our new marketing director came through Well Found. It's hit or miss. Like I said, I mean, it took us for the marketing director, it took me 6 months, like of just interviewing once a week, one or two decent candidates until you found that one person that kind of stands out. Same thing with sales roles. Like, I mean, you can do, the hire and fire quickly kind of thing. But what I found is that kind of destabilizes the company a little bit. I did that a few times and people start getting worried. They're like, well, am I next? What? And you're like, well, dude, we just hired this guy for like 2 weeks. Like, why are you worried that you've been here for like 8 years? Why are you worried you're going to get the hook? But I don't know. Sometimes employees have a difficulty kind of seeing these types of strategies and, you know, the sort of test and the catch and release type of strategy. They don't typically like that, but I think it can work. I mean, if you don't have to invest too much and you can get people onboarded quickly, I think it can work.
Interesting approach that you have. How many businesses do you want to gobble up this year? Two, three acquisitions this year?
I'd say this year, realistically, two good ones. Like we'll probably target three and hope to close two. Um, sometimes you got to get people under an LOI and kind of come to some sort of terms before you can get in there and actually see their business and see what they do and see if it's worth acquiring. Um, that pisses people off sometimes. Like a lot of people that are selling think, oh, we're under LOI. That means we're going to close. I mean, if I go under LOI, like when I used to do this in private equity, if we do it, we want to close. Like the intention is to close, but sometimes you get into these businesses and you realize like this is not what this person told me about when we sort of negotiated this deal. And you end up having to renegotiate terms or trying to go there and they don't want to renegotiate terms. And well, we're just going to walk away. So you hope, anyone that's a seller, the best thing to do is just be as transparent as possible. Like I have people approach me to buy our company even now. And I always, I have everything prepared. And it's like, hey, if you want to take a look at our company, here's everything you'll need to know to make an offer. There's no surprises. If you want to make an offer, make an offer. If not, move on. But I think a lot of people, they try and kind of hide behind something and they should just be transparent from the beginning because it just ends up blowing things up in the end.
So close rate on LOI probably 10 to 20% nowadays.
No, I mean, we try and, we're going to try and hit 70%. Like if we do an LOI, we want to make sure that we close on it. But like I said, I mean, there's always the probability that somebody hid something, something's not as good as they think. A lot of times it's the CTO or the CEO is way more involved in the business than they lead on to be. There's a lot of people like, oh no, I only work 15 hours a week. And then you realize that like all the passwords and all the information filters through this one person every day. And they don't tell you that. So those are sort of things that crash the deal. Like you're talking to an employee, and you're like, so how does this system work? Like, what do you guys do in this case? And it's like, oh, the CTO does that. And you're like, wait a second, this guy's doing like all the key pieces of the business, and he didn't tell us.
Right. It's like this wet dream, everything automated, but never happens or very rarely happens. You need to have a specific kind of nerd. And
Yeah,
also, yeah, what would be the interest of not having them in a business? Most humans are addicted to work, they need a purpose. So that's
yeah.
always very challenging. What are you looking for in a business? What are your criterias to acquire? Do you look at the team? Do you look at existing cash flow? Do you look at the ease of integration?
I mean, right now our key things are like, what is their current growth rate? What's their ARR? So like, are they over? Are they in that 1 to 3 million rate? Are they growing or are they stagnant? If they're stagnant, we would take it on, but at a certain price. Like they're going to have to probably take a 1x revenue multiple if we're going to take on a deal like that. We look how many employees there are, like what's their efficiency with capital? Like, are they doing, is it taking 20 employees to do 1 million in revenue? Obviously, that's not something that we're that attracted to. Other businesses we see, maybe they're doing 1 million ARR and they have 5 employees, which is great. Like something like that at that level, we would be happy to take on. Complementary products, things that we can plug into our own offering where things that we see like from our own sales team, where when we go into a deal and if somebody, we lose a deal, I usually ask our team, like, what do we lose the deal for? And if it's benefits, payroll, not good enough performance management, those are automatically targets that we should be going after. So those are typically the things that stand out for me. I mean, there's the obvious things like you'd love to have cash flow. SaaS businesses usually aren't the best, at least in early stages for cash. Like you're not seeing a lot of there are some businesses that sort of hide that. They're like, oh yeah, we do 1.5 million in sales and we do 700,000 in cash flow. But usually it's because they have another company that's, they're hiding a lot of the costs inside of another company. And so the P&L isn't actually real.
Must be interesting to have these conversations with people bare naked, Must be pretty awkward to them as well to explain that to you. But I mean, it's part of the game. Most people aren't financially savvy, and it's probably their first or one of the
Yeah.
most serious experience that they had with someone that wants to buy their business.
Yeah, which is why a lot of people go through brokers, they go through investment banks to sort of run the process for them. So the investment bank, sets everything up for the company because I know people in investment banks or brokers, they'll do hundreds of hours to get a business ready to sell because the books weren't good enough. The financial reporting's been terrible. There's no KPIs. There's nothing really to be shown. So, I mean, the first thing anyone that wants to sell a business should be doing is setting things up years in advance of showing your KPIs, showing even just like I've seen companies that'll show their OKRs, like say like, hey, here's what we've been doing. Here's how we've been improving over the years. Here's, we set these goals, we hit these. This is our percentage of goals hit. So the more things that you can show to a buyer, the harder for it is for them to poke holes in it and sort of find reasons to lower your price. But yeah, a lot of times people bring in brokers and investment bankers for that. Like they need to sort of dress it up so a buyer doesn't have to ask that many questions or dig too deep.
So what do your top goals look like this year, personal and business?
My personal goals, I would like to play golf 2 days a week, if that's possible. I don't know if that'll actually happen. I'd like to do 30 minutes of exercise per day, 5 days a week. That would be ideal. I have two little kids, so I don't do a lot of exercise. Between my two kids, my wife, and my job, it's not a lot of not a lot of time. Um, so those would be like the personal goals. I would say on the business side, we're looking to raise, I mean, ideally, like I said, we'd like to acquire two more companies. I'd like to raise about 10 million to be able to acquire those two companies and then invest into the growth of sort of all the companies together. That's one of the goals I had. Last year, our goal was to try and raise 1 million and just to invest into growth in Lanteria. But what I saw is it's probably more attractive to go after more acquisitions than just be doing, a growth round for one company. So that's sort of and then we have some goals of, we want to bring on 10 partners. We want to hire two new salespeople, have a few more key hires that we want to make, but those are sort of the high level goals that we've got.
Your Twitter, okay, X is quite entertaining. Where do you get these content slash post ideas of yours?
So I'm not very big on search funds, like traditional search funds. I think that they're very risk averse a lot of times, the people that get into search funds. So I have a lot of inspiration of, seeing people that raised a lot of money to go buy HVAC companies. I think is pretty funny. Now it doesn't happen as much. This was more like typical probably 5, 6 years ago. Now it's more of like a bygone era, but I don't know. I just find it funny. Like the idea of raising money to go do what I do, which I would do for free, and no investor would have to pay me $300,000 to go do this. And I get pitched search funds all the time. And I'm like, you're going to hire a guy in the Philippines to send outbound emails for you to a bunch of HVAC owners. And then you're going to charge investors 300K. And then you're going to give the investors like all this upside that you could have gotten if you just went out and found the deals yourself and paid the Filipino, the 10 grand yourself. I just don't get it. I don't really understand why people give up that much upside for, I don't know, this search fund model.
Right. And then you have all these Scarface memes and Pablo Escobar. Griselda is a nice teleseries for people listening. It's
Yeah.
quite entertaining and inspiring. That is for my wife. It's like feminism, and she can be a
Yeah.
boss too. But where'd you get these ideas? You know, do you use a tool? Is it like your own brain? I find you
No,
quite
just when
funny.
I see them online, like when I see people's Twitter feeds, like, sometimes you'll see somebody else post a meme of something, you're like, oh, that's funny. I could apply that to, they're posting about like crypto, or they're put, a lot of times it's on like crypto pages, and you'll see something funny from that and you're trying to apply it to your own. I get a lot of information from salespeople too. I think salespeople are pretty hilarious. Like the whole market of hiring salespeople, I think is funny, especially right now. Um, so there's just a huge disconnection of like all this guaranteed salary people want, and you can go out and find memes. And I don't really I use Mematic for like the app, but they don't really have like inspiration posts or anything like that. It's usually just things I've seen before and put them together myself and put them out there.
I'll check out Mematic. Why is the sales market insane? You know, like I don't feel that, and I'm not sure why people would hire salespeople in the age of AI. Why do you feel that is?
I mean, one thing is like low level salespeople for the age of AI. The other thing is, we're trying to close like $100,000 accounts. And I mean, AI is not going to close that. There's a ton of hand holding that needs to be done. You're talking to the VP, we start with the manager of HR, then we go to the VP of HR, then the VP of IT, then the CIO. All these people are involved, and they're not just going to buy on a whim. They're shopping, 6 to 10 providers, negotiating prices, checking all their security licensing, all their security certifications. So you need to have a salesperson that understands that and can walk people through a long, exhausting process of, 6 to 9 months inside of a sales process with maybe 5 or 6 demos with tons of stakeholders. And that sales process is not going away. So I think the issue is a lot of salespeople, they got used to this like guaranteed salary, and they have like this minimum lifestyle that they want to leave. And they say, for less than 150K in base, I'm not going to work for you. And if I don't have, 300 to 400K in OTE, I'm not going to come work for you. I need to have, a guarantee of being able to hit 400K. And what I try and do is just tell them like, okay, I'm not going to pay you 150K because that's just going to tank our company, but we can pay you a decent base salary, and we'll pay you an uncapped upside that you can make. I'm like, I don't care if you make 1 million. If you bring 10 million in sales for us and you make 1 million this year, I don't give a shit. Go ahead. Like, go out and sell. But a lot of times people, they, especially in this sales market where there's a lot of people that have lost their jobs over the last, I'd say 9 to 12 months, and they'd rather be sitting there sort of unemployed than doing this. And the other thing that happens a lot of times is they jump from job to job. Like I'll post a job and I'll get LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, I'll get 50 applications, and maybe 2 of those people have held a job for over 3 years in the last 10 years. Like maybe 2, usually 0, where it's just everyone has done 18 months. They're like jumping 18 months every 18 months. Once their sales cycle hits and they sort of run out of ideas, they jump to the next one. And it's like, well, why are we hiring these people as owners of companies? Like, why do we keep hiring these people? And the
Good
answer is a lot of
question.
times VC. It's VC money. It's like, we got to hit these numbers. What's our numbers? We have to hire 50 salespeople. So who gives a shit where
That's
where
lazy
they've
usually,
done?
and it's not successful, you know,
Yeah.
like most salespeople aren't that good. I'd also challenge the assumption of no AI is going to close a big company. I mean, yeah, it's not complex what most salespeople's do. You know, it's multiple touches, it's finding various pain points. And an assistant can do that, and can an AI assistant that is can do that and can connect with the head honcho, which is you, and you can close that deal without spending that much of your time. But yeah, more on that in a future convo. Where can people find out more about you, Andrew?
People can find me on Twitter, like you said. My username is Swiler A, SWILERA, or on LinkedIn. I usually repost the same stuff on LinkedIn, so you can check me out there too. Andrew Swiler, SWILER.